Welcome everyone to the webinar regarding travel trends, unpacking and insights for 2025. A little bit about me. My name is Surat. I am a customer success team lead here at Guesty. I've been with Guesty for about coming up on 3 years actually. So if I've seen you all before, nice to see you again. And if I haven't, nice to meet you. For today, our speakers, we have Bram Gallagher, the Director of Economics and Forecasting at Airbnb, Kristen Cruz, Co-founder and Chief of Experience at Destination Innovate, and Matthew Orley, CEO of Red Cottage PMC. To go through a little bit of the agenda here today, I'm going to start off with a couple of insightful items about Guesty and when we started and some of the data around Guesty specifically and how you can take advantage of Guesty as much as possible. Then I'll turn it over to the meat of the webinar here with data trends presented by Bram, predictions for 2025, what that looks like. Then we're going to pass it over to Kristen to show what building a brand looks like, and she's going to walk us through about branding and how to take advantage of that. And for the final speaker, over to Matt to talk about loyalty and how subscription programs can also come into play, and together how you can go on to 2025 for data trends, taking a data approach, an analytical approach, and put that into use for the next year. And for the last portion, for about 20 minutes, we're going to do a little panel discussion with some Q&A as well. Thank you so much. So to move on, I just wanted to highlight some of the data points that I mentioned about Guesty. It was founded in the year 2013. We currently have about funding of over 410 million. We've acquired a few companies over the years as well, the most recent being Rentals United. We also have 15 offices worldwide, and we have customers in about 90 countries as well. There's a few different versions of Guesty. There's 3 that I would like to highlight here. Guesty Lite for some of the starter PMCs that are starting off with lower amount of listings, and for hosts who want to maximize earnings on autopilot, it automates a lot of the functionalities that you don't need to manually put your hands on. The next portion is Guesty Pro, which is for professionals ready to optimize their operations. This is for more so 4 to 199, about 200 listings, I would say. And there's also a Guesty Enterprise functionality as well for businesses in need of a scalable operation that you're looking for significant growth over time. Now for our first speaker here, Bram Gallagher, I'm going to stop sharing and he's going to walk us through some of the data trends and what it looks like going into 2025.
Thank you, sir. And thanks, Guesty, for having me. If you don't know, AirDNA is a company that collects data via web scraping from all the Airbnb, VRBO, Expedia listings across the globe. And we give intelligence to operators within these markets on what their competition might be doing. So I'm glad to hear that a lot of people have seen increases to bookings in 2024. We know 23 was a tough year, but what I'd like to do is give a little overview of the U.S. market, what the performance has been like, and I've also just completed a forecast exercise for the U.S. that I'd like to go into. We've got a couple details about some trends we're seeing in Europe as well. So again, in the U.S., we saw that 2023 was a real tough year. And you can see over here in this real GDP growth, maybe why some of that was. If you look at the end of 2022, there was very, very high inflation. GDP growth was dipping. Income growth was falling. We were all worried about recession for that entire year. So nobody was booking vacations. Everyone was trying to save money wherever they could. Now, if we go forward to today, it looks like, wow, the Federal Reserve pulled off that soft landing that they're talking about or had been talking about for years. Amazing job. I had never seen anything like this as an economist. Usually when the Federal Reserve tries to tackle inflation by increasing rates, we see recessions. We didn't see one. In fact, our GDP growth has been revised upward. Moreover, something else has happened in the last few months. Trump was elected again to be the president of the United States, and his policy plans include significant fiscal stimulus starting in the year 2025. Now, that is in the form of continuation of tax breaks, but also additional spending. But what that means is it's going to juice up an economy that is already performing pretty well. So if you can see here, this forecast that we've got, that dark blue line, that was the previous forecast that we had about 6 months ago. We go forward to today. We've had upward revisions. not only into the historical data, but certainly into our forecast. And if you'll see out there in 2026, that's when that fiscal stimulus really starts hitting, and we're going to be off to a larger growth path than we had been before. On the other hand, look at this graph here on the right. One of the other effects of this stimulus is going to be, again, the economy is already humming along pretty well. Our employment is at a very strong level. And what happens when you stimulate an economy that's doing pretty well? There is a risk of overheating. So some of these policies, including the tariffs, are seen to be inflationary. So the Federal Reserve is going to be very, very conscious of this. They remember, and they have data from 1972 when we had inflation. We cut the rates to get that inflation down, and maybe prematurely, we increased the rates to get inflation down and prematurely cut them, and inflation came back. So it is our expectation that the rates are going to be held higher for longer. And that is how we've come up with our forecast, is by looking at these types of economic influences. And this is going to give rise to a big trend in 2025. There's going to be sort of two branches that are going to be diverging. So the investor branch over here is going to be facing significant headwinds. And we've seen that happen over the last few years. So this is actually a continuation of the trend that we've seen in the US. Supply growth in response to that enormous performance gain that we saw in 2021 from all that pent-up demand. Supply growth really spiked, also in reaction to low interest rates. As those interest rates go up, we have seen the supply go down. That is going to continue going down because it is difficult and expensive to buy homes for rent on the short-term rental market. So supply growth has been diminishing pretty severely. You can see that green line. I haven't forecasted that one yet, but that's the new listings. That, as a percentage of the current listings, has also been declining. And again, it's reflecting those investor headwinds. We've seen interest rates increase dramatically. We haven't seen home prices decline very much. So it's still going to be a pretty stiff investment environment. It's going to improve maybe a little bit as we enter into 2026, but it's still going to be a lower supply growth for the immediate future. Meanwhile, look at this. This is kind of a complex graph looking at demand and booking. But I think to put it in very simple terms, these dark blue bars, the demand nights, are taller on the right side of this graph, generally speaking, than they are on the left side. And I think that matches up well with people's responses to the polls. 23 was a really difficult year, and we've seen a lot more growth in 2024, maybe even some pent-up demand. We're expecting 7% demand growth in 2024, considerably higher than 2023. Now, that demand growth, again, might include some pent-up demand, so we might see that come down just a little bit in 2025, but we're still expecting to see pretty good growth. Meanwhile, the demand growth, as you can see here, between all the different location types, it's going to be split up a little bit. What we've seen in the US is that the small town, rural, mid-sized city, where the property is affordable and where you can buy housing for a reasonable rate, that supply has still been increasing pretty dramatically. And if you look at large city urban, where we've seen a real affordability crisis, where we've seen increased regulation, that supply has been diminishing very, very quickly. In the next few months, we're going to start getting the year-over-year comparisons with the New York data, comparing regulated New York versus regulated New York. So that growth is going to start coming back up for urban, but it's still going to be challenged. Meanwhile, those small city and rural and mid-sized city where things are still affordable, they're still going to see a bit more supply growth and demand growth that can be supported by that as well. If you look too here, if you have a vacation resort, look to 2026 for that demand to really start taking off, because again, that fiscal stimulus is going to hit our pocketbooks pretty hard in 26, and everyone's going to be wanting to take a vacation in these luxurious resort places. So it's going to be coming down a little bit off of this peak here in 2024, but urban is going to be improving, resort is going to be improving in 2026, and certainly the small town and mid-sized cities are going to be doing pretty well in demand as we move forward. And that is going to help our occupancy. Think about that. Supply is hard to obtain, and growth is shrinking. At the same time, demand has re-strengthened and is going to maintain that strength and even bump up a little bit in 2026. That means occupancy is finally going to start going in the right direction, and that is up Now, we haven't quite made it back to that 2018, 2019, 56% benchmark. However, we have hit the bottom, and that was in April of 2024, so April of this year. We hit that bottom, and we are starting to slightly increase our occupancy. 2024's occupancy is going to be just a sliver better than it was in 23, and that's going to continue into 2025. And in 2026, we're going to see even more of this occupancy gain again as that fiscal stimulus hits, and it's going to start dragging us back to that long run average. And I think this is great news for all the hosts out there. We're just going to stop seeing this dramatic decline in occupancy that we've seen since 2021 and that peak performance that we saw right after the pandemic with all that pent up demand. So that's our expectation for the occupancy moving forward. Now, here's some other things that might influence the makeup of the new listings that are being brought online, as well as the sort of the demand patterns here. If we look here, these blue lines are the available listings. The green lines are the demand growth, and this is for the 12 months ending in October of 2024. I've broken this out by location and bedroom type just to give you a look about what's the most swiftly growing and how is that going to influence the makeup in the future. If you look over here in large city urban, that big green bar, the fastest growth that we've seen, 6-bedroom plus places in large city urban. Now, one of the reasons is there aren't a whole lot of these listings that exist in urban, but another reason is that as people are looking for incredible value, and the 6-bedroom is one of the ways that we've really seen that, or the larger listings, I should say, because the larger it is, it looks like in urban, the more growth you're going to see. So what we've seen is that over the last couple of years, there's kind of been a new trend in travel. And that is to say, if you've got a group, if you've got a family, if you've got a wedding party, any of that Smurf kind of activity, a short-term rental can be a really, really great value proposition for a guest because they can split that bill several ways. Or if you've got a big family, you can have separate bedrooms for all the kids and not have to pay for all those separate hotel rooms. Now, in small city, rural, and suburban, we've already seen quite a bit of development there, and you can see the growth is still favoring larger listings a little bit, but it is more spread out than, say, in the mid-size or the large city urban. And how this is going to affect these is it is going to contribute quite a bit to the mix shift. So you're probably wondering, all right, we've got demand coming back, supply is hard to get. This makes real headwinds for investment, but what about operators? And that means that occupancy is going up. When you've got supply growth diminishing, demand growth surging, occupancy is going to start creeping back up. And because we're not seeing that year-on-year occupancy decline with so much more competition being thrust into every market every year, we're going to see some more pricing power. On the other hand, some of that is going to be due to mix shift, and particularly in, again, that large city, urban, and mid-sized city, where you're seeing a big tilt to larger properties. So that ADR change of about 7%, huge ADR change for big city urban. But we look over here, RRI, that is the repeat rent. That is the amount that people that already are in this market are going to be changing their prices rather than just the mix shift. It's quite a bit lower. So with this RRI, with this repeat rent index, we can sort of separate the effective mix shift by looking at the difference. And it's very, very pronounced in urban and mid-sized cities. And it still holds true for suburban and small city world, but you can see those ADR and RRI bars are quite a bit closer. Those ADRs are going to be reflecting actual increases to prices in the suburban markets and actual declines a little bit in the small city rural. So it's going to be kind of an interesting thing that the growth that we see moving forward, I think, in ADR is going to also reflect the changing composition within these location types. Now, we want to know about 2025. Here's some of the data that we've got. Now, the most important source, I think, of forward-looking data is our forward pace. And you can see here from November and December in the US, we're looking really strong. And also January as well. Some of this is year-on-year effect because, as you recall, January of this year, snowpack was not great. So a lot of ski vacations were deferred until February. We also had a bit of a calendar shift in there with an early Easter. So some of that is throwing some confusion into some of the later months here. But we are looking at a very strong November and December. So I've got high hopes that this increasing occupancy trend that we've seen in 2024 is going to continue and is going to even strengthen. So here it is. Don't worry, we're going to be giving out this presentation in PDF form, so you don't have to scribble these down if you're wondering. But here is the US forecast again that we've completed. We're thinking 7% demand increase for 2024. That's dramatically higher than we saw in 2023 with 1.8. So this was the height of inflation. This was everyone was thinking about recession. Some of that pent-up activity got moved into 2024, so we are going to see that back down a little bit in 25 to 4.9%. However, supply growth is going to continue to slow, and it will slow even more than the demand growth will. And that is going to give us some positive occupancy growth, some pricing power. So we're going to continue seeing ADRs increase. And we go into 2026, that demand is going to grow even faster again as some of that fiscal stimulus starts to hit. That is going to push our occupancy up. We're going to see positive RevPAR change. So no more of this negative RevPAR stuff for the foreseeable future. And I think that is something that we can all look forward to. Now, these are modest gains, however, way better than 2023 when we were losing 8.5% RevPAR year on year. So a little bit of good news after a tumultuous few years after the pandemic. Turning to Europe, Europe has been a dramatically different story because we haven't seen the big run-up in supply in Europe like we have seen in the US. Demand is really starting to hit Europe over these last couple of years. We thought it was just a flash in the pan. You know, everyone was going to visit Europe in, say, 23 and 24, or 22 and 23 after markets opened up. But it's continued into 24, and we've seen really strong performance. And in particular, big trend for this last year was the shoulder seasons. If you'll notice, May 24 there, September, October, that's when we're seeing some real big ADR RevPAR growth this year. So looking at this, it breaks it down by occupancy and ADR. But you can see that orange line there, especially high in May 24th, May 2024, September 2024, October 2024. Again, March, April, there was sort of that Easter shift. And in particular, too, who really loves to go to the shoulder seasons? It's the luxury traveler. So if we look here at the budget and economy, it tends to be maybe a little bit more opportunistic. Maybe the upscale and luxury properties, on the other hand, there's a little bit of extra planning that might be going into these, and they've really preferred and seen big growth in the shoulder season. So that's one of the big trends that we've seen. But in any case, we've seen really robust demand growth across all of Europe for October. So again, people are really taking advantage of this. Maybe it's because the summers have been so hot in Europe for the last few years. We're moving some of that travel into October. You can see here Dubrovnik, the Adriatic has been doing very, very well in Croatia as part of that. Also, we've seen some regulations and some controversy hit in Spain. So Barcelona over here, which does have quite a bit of regulation here on the far left side. Meanwhile, Marbella and Malaga on the south side of Spain are seeing some of the biggest growth because people are loving the Spanish coast. We just can't get them enough Spanish coast. They just really are eating it up. Here's also our forward look for Europe. As you can see, stronger year-over-year demand change, where we're seeing 10 and 11% pacing growth. Here we're seeing more around 18 to 20%. So really, really strong holiday demand in Europe that's moving through into January, February. Again, there's that sort of Easter shift, which is throwing some of the months off here, but we're expecting to see continued strong growth in Europe as well, particularly, again, in those luxury listings in the shoulder seasons. So here's some key takeaways, if you'd like. Essentially, what we've got is investor headwinds are going to continue to strengthen. That's a trend that we've seen. Meanwhile, unit level performance is going to start finally seeing some improvement in the US. Europe, we've been seeing unit level performance increases. It is going to continue as well. Resorts and vacation, if you can really advertise yourself to the leisure traveler, they're going to have some money to burn in 2026 from that fiscal stimulus. And also, if you look budget conscious travelers, this is a trend that maybe we haven't covered maybe in depth, but they're looking for those larger properties, again, for that sort of value proposition. But I should point out for luxury travelers, they're still looking at single bedrooms most intently. So the European travel still booming, and over tourism concerns remain. This is a blanket statement for everyone. be organized, get into your local short-term rental association, get politically active because regulations are a threat to this industry. We want to manage tourism, but we don't want to outlaw our livelihoods. So those are our takeaways. And with that, my presentation is over, and I think Kristen has got some great ideas about how to take advantage of that shoulder demand.
Absolutely. That was great. Thank you so much, Brian. So one of the things that we think about at Destination Innovate, just a little bit about what we do, we are marketing branding. We think a lot about the visual, the emotion, the experience, right? And that's a big piece of what every short-term rental owner and property management company really thinks about. We like to say branding is storytelling. Right? Sales and marketing is storytelling in reverse. We think about our sales and marketing approach as we think about laying that foundation for brand very strongly, but we're selling the benefit and we're backing it up with the brand. And I think when we think about that way, we're able to really tell a really important and necessary story to our potential guests without leading with a brand. And this really kind of comes right off of what, where Bram and Air DNA, obviously data is extremely important, right? It's imperative to start with why in branding. We like to talk about a gut check, right? And this is kind of to get the juices flowing, right? If your guests are coming from a particular place, whether that's a demographic, geographic location, and you have your set number of people who are coming for just to kind of take a peek, right? Kick tires, look around, see what's there. But your sales and those that are booking, your actual guests staying at your property or properties are a particular, let's say that's males 35 to 45. What do you follow in marketing? Are you looking at the interest? Or are you looking at the conversion? Are you looking at your guests and who's actually staying in your properties? And that's where we really start from. How do we incorporate data into what we think about when we think about the brand itself? Something else that I think is really important when we think about brand, we think about seasonality, right? We think about that connection from a seasonal aspect to the brand. And why this is really important is because we as consumers think about our travel and we think about our vacations and we think about our time away a lot of times in a seasonal mindset. We think about times of year playing an important role in the experiences we're going to have, but we also think about the place we're staying and what that place incorporates into our seasonal experience. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some selling points here. Seasonal campaigns we think is extremely important when it comes to tapping into a destination's potential, right? There are unique selling points of every destination. We like to say also that it's not necessarily where your property is located, but everywhere is a destination. Your property itself and the experience that your guests are going to have at that property is a destination of itself. Now, we want you to take advantage of those unique selling points of the holistic destination. Some ways we think about doing that are seasonality focus, leveraging local traditions. So if you are marketing and branding your property, incorporating some seasonality and some of the storytelling and some of the experiences that can be had there, but doing that with some of your imagery as well, incorporating some visuals, put people into that immersive idea of what that experience could look like if they stayed in that property during that time of year and what that whole destination experience could be. Festivals, activities that fosters that authentic connection to not just remembering that amazing experience that your guest had at your property, but that amazing experience they had holistically in the destination. Timely content when it comes to seasonal campaigns is really important. And we think about this from a competitive nature because we see the market shifting where you have more and more property management companies and more owners really getting very sophisticated and getting, understanding the importance of branding and the importance of marketing in their properties. And the importance of competition, right? As the market grows and there's more properties on the market to choose from, we all have to be a little bit more selective and we all have to, really put a little more time into what we're putting out there. So creating timely content that inspires travel within those seasons is extremely important. And you can incorporate some brand into that as you're thinking about the visuals and you're talking about some of the activities that can be done there during that time of year. So think about your listing as really that brand and that marketing message from a seasonal standpoint. Now, something else that we want to think about too, as we think about that, is obviously evergreen, right? Your year-round approach to how you're marketing your property or properties. Storytelling continues to be very, very important here, but visual storytelling is extremely important when we think about imagery, we think about those seasonal experiences, but also year-round activities and how those incorporate into your property. Now I'm thinking about, you have your single individual property owners and you have those that have multiple properties, right? And I'm sure thinking, okay, if I have properties all over and in different destinations, how do I think brand, but also be unique to each destination? And that's a really important thing to think about when you think about that evergreen approach to your brand, because a lot of times we think about brand as being visual. We think about it being in the form of fonts, logos, words, but brand is more than a logo. It's more than that visual aspect. It's the experience that you are evoking when you talk about your properties. And that's across the board. That doesn't matter where that property is from a destination perspective, but just how you're putting that property out in those marketing aspects. And sustainability is extremely important. No matter what season we're in, or no matter what your brand really talks to, being eco-friendly, emphasizing some of those eco-friendly practices during off-peak travel is extremely important, but just preserving and finding ways of showcasing how the destination incorporates some of those activities and how your individual property really kind of speaks to some of that is extremely important. I want to get into a little bit of a checklist when we talk about, getting into some of the specifics here, right? Consistency. Consistency is so important when you think about branding for your property or properties, right? That's the foundation for your brand. That's the foundation for the voice, for the experience that you're putting out there. We think about these in two buckets. We think about visual consistency, right? That's prioritizing things like colors, fonts, things that reflect your property's personality and the promise. I have a couple of examples in here, and I want to talk a little bit about Canva, which I'm sure a lot of you probably know or have heard of at this point. Canva is a really, really important and necessary tool these days, as are a lot of other tools, obviously. But Canva is one that we recommend quite often because of their templates and all of the resources they provide specifically for the real estate short-term rental market when it comes to putting together pieces that help that brand stay consistent. And I'm talking about signage within your properties. If you have welcome signage, if you have instructions for your guests, you want that to flow with your brand. You want that to visually feel like it belongs there. It belongs in that place and in that particular tone and scheme. We also think about that when we think about welcome books. A lot of property owners are thinking about, how do I create the best possible experience for my guests, right? How do I really showcase the destination and all the available things around us? That's part of your brand. What you include in that, how that looks, where that's placed, how convenient that is for your guests, that's part of your brand. And Canva is just a great place. I highly recommend that all the time for a number of things we do. So check that out if you have a chance. But the other thing that we think about when we think about the foundation for the brand is the story. So when we think about the story, we're talking about highlighting what sets your property apart from other properties in the area. What sets your place apart from the destination itself? How am I creating and evoking that brand and that specific experience in my property if they never leave? But if they leave and they choose to explore, right, how does the destination become a part of that experience? And why that is really important, and I'll dig into this in a second, and Matt, who will lean in a little bit after my presentation on loyalty, this is why your brand and the experience that you put out there for your guests and what they truly get from that experience lands at the ultimate goal, right? Repeat guests. We want our guests to come back. We want them to stay over and over and over again. We want them to talk about that experience they had at that property and why it was so great. And and make it something that's repetitive in that. And when we think about that, brand is still an important piece to this. It may not be the visual brand, it's more the experiential part of the brand, right? It's simplifying that guest journey. It's making sure that booking process and that online present is intuitive, it's consistent, it's friction-free. We're communicating the value, right? It's really showcasing the benefits, not just the features. When we think about an experience and what that brand of that property really evokes, it's not just a feature set and all the available things. It's really the unique experience you're going to have because of those features. And obviously staying responsive and adaptable, right? Your tone and your responsiveness and how you respond and what you say and that welcomeness and that being completely transparent and open and understanding and having that personality, that's part of your brand. So listening to guest feedback and those aligning with trends, right? I mean, AirDNA put a lot of data out there, evolving with the expectations of the industry and understanding what our guests are doing and why they're doing it and what the rest of the industry is doing that's forcing them to lean into some of those expectations. So that's extremely important from that loyalty standpoint. So that's really highlights from a branding perspective. We've put together a place for you guys to go if you want to learn more about branding. We put some resources together. Check it out at destinationinnovate.com/Guesty. And that's all. That's a bit about branding. And we'll pass it over to Matt.
Thank you, Kristen. That was very insightful information about branding. Now, what we can do with branding is convert that into brand loyalty. So off to you, Matt, if you want to take it over.
Thanks, Kristen. That was great. Welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here as part of the webinar Travel Trends Unpacked. My name is Matthew Orley. I'm the CEO of Red Cottage, a platform for vacation rentals in the northeast of the United States, which, for the benefit of our international audience here, relatively means New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Massachusetts, soon to be Vermont. And you can find us at redcottage.com and with the Instagram account Red Cottage Inc. I've built Red Cottage over the last 2 years through the acquisition of some smaller property managers, as well as through a lot of organic growth, and we are approaching 200 units under management. Our core guests that we are catering to really are people from the immediate New York City area, as well as Philadelphia and Boston. And our business is defined by short weekend stays and low seasonality, given the constant demand to escape from the city for a quick getaway. I say that these are not true vacation markets, but really weekend markets, and that distinction changes who our guests are and what they're looking for from us. Most notably, we launched a membership program in June of this year that was really the first of its kind, and it has completely transformed our business. So I'm excited to be here today to explore how the strategies that we implemented to embrace guest loyalty can help you build engagement and boost revenue and stay competitive in 2025. So here's what we'll cover today in about 10 slides. The growing importance of loyalty programs in the vacation rental market, in the short-term rental space, the Red Cottage membership program, key benefits and success metrics, as well as homeowner impact, scalable strategies for smaller portfolios, how these approaches impact bookings and revenue, and what's next for loyalty. So let's talk about industry trends. Loyalty programs are pretty widely adopted across the broader lodging industry, but they remain relatively rare in the vacation rental segment. Despite this, vacation rental guests increasingly seek the same value and consistency found in hotels and resorts. With every major hotel brand experiencing double-digit growth of their loyalty programs over the last 5 years, it's hard not to look at that from the vacation rental space and not see the opportunity as it exists for this segment of the market. The biggest friction point is that the vacation rental market is highly fragmented, making it harder to define a clear universal value proposition for any single brand. However, this also presents an opportunity for differentiation. Rewards-based programs have been prevalent, and there are different approaches that I've seen other people take who how they can really hone in on their specific customer so as to be able to cater to them in a more highly personalized way. The point is that personalization has become really a baseline expectation. Guests want tailored experiences and to be taken care of irrespective of their accommodation. So to tell you about a bit about the Red Cottage membership, we launched the program in June 2024 to enhance guest. And this was something that I had envisioned since I first came into the business. We felt that we had a good opportunity to do so given a few very specific points. Our explicit geographic focus, the consistency and the quality of our assets within our portfolio, the high percentage of direct bookings that we were already receiving, and our repeat booking rate. We had a lot of things that were already working in our favor. Essentially, since we already had so many guests coming to us, we were asking, how can we lock them in further? Additionally, we are in a highly saturated market where there continues to be an oversupply of short-term rental units. The Hudson Valley alone has nearly 10,000 rental units. So we ask ourselves how we can lock in our guests and have them think of us before they're going to another OTA. That's really what the membership program seeks to do. Also, it's meant to incentivize more impulsive travel. We want our guests to feel like these homes are in their backyard and that it's a very easy thing to do to decide spur of the moment that they are going to get out of the city for the weekend. We want to incentivize the impulsivity. The membership is made up of a $500 annual subscription, which I always felt was a good deal. Given that our portfolio extends across all price points, I did not want this to appeal only to the highest end of the market. I wanted this to be accessible to all of our guests, even if they typically were only booking homes at $200 a night. I also wanted this to pay itself back very quickly. With the membership, we're offering perks like discounts and extended booking access and free nights. And the program allows us to reward our most loyal guests while driving higher revenue for our homeowners. So let's break down some of the benefits that our members enjoy, which are extensive and maybe to a fault. I want people to feel like they are going to be taken care of and have a very high and personal level of service. We offer 10% off of our nightly rates. We offer waived fees, which can be anything from pet fees to check-in or check-out fees, as well as waived cleaning fees for stays longer than a week. We offer extended booking windows, so you can request dates further out than non-members. We offer previews of new homes. We have a monthly flash sale for slow-moving or underperforming homes, only for members. We offer a $200 annual travel credit. And then there's custom itineraries, priority bookings, welcome gifts. We'll book you restaurant reservations, help book your ski passes, really anything that you need. These perks enhance guest satisfaction while encouraging repeat bookings and help to accelerate bookings for homes that need a boost. So our membership program has achieved remarkable results in 7 months. We've sold hundreds of memberships since launching in June 2024. Half of our members have stayed with us at least twice, which is a testament to the program's ability to drive loyalty and engagement. Nearly 20% of members have stayed 3 times or more, which is incredible. And we had one guest who stayed with us 10 times in less than a year. Also, the average order value for members is more than 40% higher than for non-members or for the bookings, across the year. These results highlight the power of loyalty programs. They don't just encourage repeat bookings. They transform how guests interact with our brand. Members feel valued, and that connection motivates them to keep returning to us. Let's talk about the impact this has on our homeowners. This is not just about enhancing guest satisfaction. This is also a tool to increase homeowner success. We have higher occupancy rates. Repeat guests are more likely to fill calendar gaps, particularly in off-peak periods. By encouraging members to return again, we've reduced vacancy rates, and we have steadier, more reliable bookings. There's increased revenue, so loyal guests are high-value guests. They book more frequently and for longer stays. And the members often just have a more personal connection to specific properties. They'll return often to the same homes, and they take better care of those homes because they feel a deeper connection to the Red Cottage brand and the home itself. So data is really at the center of every decision we make, and we've tried to be very data-driven as we create personalized experiences that further drive loyalty. Through our membership program, we've gained deeper insights into what guests truly value. Our members have to fill out an extensive questionnaire that gives us an incredible amount of insight so that we can be that much more proactive in setting up a stay for them that is really tailored to their preference. We know if you're traveling with pets, we can ensure that pet-friendly amenities are on site. We know if you have children, and we can provide family-friendly setups. We even know how you like your fridge stocked. We know which restaurants you tried on your last visit and can recommend new options tailored to you. If you're looking for a workspace, we can guide you to co-working options in the area. And if you loved a local hiking trail, we can recommend you new trails for your next trip. So these details allow us to set up each home and each trip in a way that feels completely tailored to the guest. It creates a stronger emotional connection. We also continue to refine our software and tech stack specifically to cater to these members. Guesty's been a great partner in helping us to provide these tools that we can leverage for our own platform so as to be able to make this experience as seamless as possible for our members. Let's talk about revenue predictability and occupancy rates. One of the greatest benefits of a membership program is the financial stability it provides. Annual membership fees create a recurring revenue stream that smooth out seasonal fluctuations. And this predictability is particularly valuable in the vacation rental market, where revenues can be highly seasonal and unpredictable. Metrics we've seen improve include higher occupancy rates, steady cash flow from membership fees, and increased length of stay from our members. It's not just a way to retain guests, it's a way to ensure a sustainable business model and the foundation to plan operationally with greater confidence. This stability gives us the flexibility to focus on enhancing the guest experience rather than reacting to last-minute booking trends, especially given that we operate in a market with incredibly short booking lead times. So converting one-time guests into loyal members is really key to the program's success. We're always upselling guests who make direct bookings, explaining how they can save more through membership. We use targeted strategies to highlight the value of the membership and encourage signups. Some of those are post-stay follow-ups. So we'll send a personalized email explaining the benefits of membership after they check out. We also do booking confirmation promotions. So during the booking process, we introduce the membership and we demonstrate the savings that they could have if they were to sign up. We also do on-site engagement. So at check-in or checkout, we're always highlighting the perks of membership. We also want to create urgency around it. We just ran a great Black Friday sale on the membership itself, which had a very limited time promotion, and that was highly effective in driving conversions. And then in our site itself, we use native site promotions. So we use banners on our property cards to highlight homes that might be available in a flash sale. And then only the members can see those promo codes. We use call outs in the checkout process to get guests to inquire about how membership can help them save more on their booking. We're always trying to think of ways that we can further leverage our platform and our site to always keep that top of mind for the guest and the person making the booking. So I think this is one of the most important points to make here. Loyalty strategies do not have to be complex or resource intensive to be effective. It doesn't need to be a full-scale loyalty program. The simplest way to start is by reaching out to your most important guests and just asking, how can we take better care of you? This direct communication shows guests that you value their feedback and are committed to improving their experience. There are a ton of scalable alternatives. There are loyalty discounts. So you can offer repeat guests a small discount, 5 to 10%, to encourage them to return. You can have a referral program. So you can reward guests for referring someone else, friends or family, with discounts or free nights. You can offer a simplified rewards program. So something like stay X nights and get Y discount. This is easy to implement and it fosters loyalty without needing to build out these additional systems. Even small gestures like personalized communication or modest incentives make guests feel valued, and ultimately that deepens their connection to your brand. Finally, it goes without saying that loyalty programs can decrease your dependency on the OTAs. 100% of our member bookings are direct. None of these perks are available if you book through an OTA. What that means to you as a manager is obvious: fewer OTA fees and improved business profitability. We still use OTAs for guest acquisition, ensuring that we reach new audiences, but post-stay promotions and loyalty incentives encourage OTA guests to book directly for future stays, and we convert them into long-term customers. The result is that we see a shift toward direct bookings, with OTAs serving primarily as the marketing tool for first-time guests. Our Red Cottage platform is our biggest channel, ahead of any OTA, and we've completely erased any OTA dependency in our business. As we plan for 2025, we're focused on how to elevate our loyalty program to meet and exceed guest expectations. The key is really understanding your guests. Think about who your guests are and what they want from you. For our guests, it's about having seamless year-round access to beautiful homes for weekend getaways. Beyond those accommodations, they're looking for additional perks that can enrich that trip. So that could be free access to co-working studios. That could be complimentary or discounted access to gyms or spas or wellness centers in those areas. It could be discounted tickets to local events or concerts or music festivals that are happening in these areas. So by identifying these value points, we're not just creating a membership, really, we're building a community where our guests feel supported in every aspect of their travel experience. Guests who feel understood and catered to are more likely to stay loyal to your brand. And by offering thoughtful, curated benefits, you strengthen the emotional connection that the guest has to your property. The takeaway here is that loyalty isn't just about discounts or bookings. It's about delivering value and experiences that really truly resonate with the needs of your guests. So I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions, what challenges and opportunities you see in implementing loyalty strategies for your own brands. But you can also feel free to connect with Red Cottage on Instagram or with me directly on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Move on to the live Q&A panel here. What I want to first talk about, Bram, is directly in relation to maybe some of your trends and things that you mentioned, specifically supply changes. So many markets experience supply changes throughout 2024. I want to understand, how do you expect inventory levels to evolve in maybe 2025, and what implications does this have on pricing strategies that you shared?
Yeah, no, sure. That's a great question. I mean, the supply growth story is perhaps, the most important for the individual operator. Knowing who's going to be competing in your market is very, very important. Now, there are a lot of these headwinds in the U.S. that we have seen, particularly high interest rates that are probably going to stay that way for some amount of time. So. And housing prices too. They went up very, very quickly during the pandemic. Interest rates, when they spiked up, we anticipated that housing prices might go down, but they didn't. They sort of waffled for a second, but then just kind of continued marching upward. It might have been a lack of transactions, but in any case, it's a really difficult market to find a place to locate your new short-term rental, which is not such a bad thing for operators. Now, in Europe, the case is a bit different because we have seen a lot of deferred supply growth. We've seen tremendous supply growth still, and increasing supply growth in, say, a lot of Scandinavian countries. There has been a lot of interest in developing around the Adriatic Sea, particularly since Greece is kind of booked up, I guess. Their prices are going up, and people are looking for affordable alternatives. So, it really depends on the particulars of your market, and of course, regulations. That's another important factor for supply growth. These can have negative or positive ramifications. If you're already operating in a market, for instance, San Francisco, we've seen, has had pretty strict regulations, but we've also seen very nice ADR gains or rate gains for short-term rentals within San Francisco this past year, perhaps because you don't have all of this competition for where you can stay.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I think there was a live question also asked. I think it's a twofold here. Does the presentation that you walked through, does that include the data for Caribbean islands? And in general, I'm assuming AirDNA includes that information, if not presented right now as well. That was for you, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was on mute there for a moment.
Yeah, the presentation that you shared, does that include the Caribbean islands?
Yes, I am so sorry. It does not, that presentation does not include the Caribbean islands, but AirDNA, I just wanted to point out, is a global data provider. We have data that's collected in the United States, but also Europe, South America. Indonesia is a country that I've been looking at recently. I mean, it's everywhere, every corner of the planet. So certainly the Caribbean is included in that.
Amazing, thank you. Alrighty, I have a question for Kristen on the panel here today. I know a lot of people would take different approaches to branding and things like that, but is there any or what common branding mistakes do you see maybe property managers making, and how can they pivot their strategy to build out more lasting connection with guests?
Yeah, I think probably the most common that we see is just being very generic and inconsistent. I think inconsistency is probably one of the biggest things. I think, you could really pivot from a more generic brand just by refining your story, right? Investing in quality visuals. I talked a little bit about Canva as a resource. I think that subscription is 12 or $13 a month, not a big, not a cost prohibitive resource, but it's extremely important in some of that consistency, right? And also I think delivering some of that more personalized guest experience that aligns with the brand. And that may be, that highlighting some of those unique aspects, and even boiling down to something as simple as, if you provide a complimentary welcome basket, right? That doesn't have to be different for every guest. You could do that, could be a branding piece. That experience that guest has with seeing, receiving, and having this welcome basket from your property could be part of your brand, and that's consistent. And then you refine that over time to be even better. So yeah, I think really it is more so the biggest mistakes being just being generic and that inconsistency for sure.
Perfect. I think a lot of the participants will enjoy that piece there. Matt, I do have a question for you specifically to do with one-time guests. What strategies have you found most effective for converting one-time guests into loyalty program members? And are there any specific touch points you think in the guest journey that present the best opportunities to maybe put your brand loyalty in front?
Well, definitely when people come to us to book natively on our site, we're immediately putting in front of them information about the membership program. That's the first touch point and most clear opportunity to do so. But the fact of the matter is, our communication with our guests, especially if it's a booking made through an OTA, is happening in so many different ways. And for us, it's all very cohesive on the back end. But we might be speaking to them on the phone. We might be texting with them. We might be, speaking to them natively in the, in the platform itself. And you have so many opportunities to just surface the membership opportunity as it's been built. So it's always something that we're thinking of how to drive further.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Bram, I think I'm going to end with one last question for you. You shared a lot of data, specifically what 2024 is, how we're looking at historic, and how to get into 2025. What would be maybe the most critical metrics property managers should be tracking? I saw RevPAR, I saw RRI, I saw ADR in there as well. Which ones would you recommend that people should be paying really close attention to in their presentation, or otherwise just in general to get that competitive edge in 2025?
Well, I'm from a data company, so I would say more data is always better. But it's important to keep these national trends in mind, even market level trends. But everyone's properties are very, very specific. So I think if you really want to make sure that you're staying ahead of the competition and having a good comp set and being able to assemble that and being able to benchmark against that. Being able to anticipate then, periods of high demand that might happen from either events, calendar shifts, other kind of seasonal fluctuations. Those are all incredibly important, and they do require more localized data, even than the stuff that I've been presenting today, which is a bit higher level. But all of those things are something to keep in mind. And whenever you're looking at occupancy and ADR, a lot of people do tend to try to maximize occupancy, but what we're really trying to do at the end of the day, remember, is maximize our profit. So always keep that trade-off in mind when setting your prices.
Thank you, everyone. I think that concludes our webinar today. I really appreciate everybody joining. If you have any questions, please reach out to events at Guesty or check out our guesty.com/events for any future virtual meetups as well. We should be sending out the PDFs, the presentation in general, and also the recording itself if you're signed up for them there. Thank you, everyone.